Casual, where today we are going to be continuing our free agency predictions with linebackers and edge rushers. So off ball linebackers, outside linebackers, and then defensive ends, pretty much. As real quick, as I'm recording this video, it's Thursday, March 6th, 2:33 p.m. So we'll see, because obviously a lot of stuff's happening with like cuts and trades, people requesting trades, teams letting players seek trades. So a lot could happen from now until this video actually gets published, but that's when I'm recording it just for a little bit of reference. But without further ado, let's get into these predictions. First player up is Charles Omenihu of the Chiefs. Now, the Chiefs don't have a lot of money. They barely are even in the positive of salary cap. And they have a lot of free agents like Omenihu, like Nick Bolton, who we'll get into later in the video, Justin Reed. They had the franchise tag Trey Smith. They had to trade Joe Thuney they traded Joe Thuney to the Bears. They could be losing a lot of players with the cap they have and with the amount of free agents they have. But I feel like a guy like Omenihu, he's not going to cost a lot of money. Despite teams having negative cap, they always bring guys back. Teams can work around the cap very easily. And I think if there's one guy who they would like to bring back who isn't going to cost a lot, because Nick Bolton's going to cost a lot, and Justin Reed is probably going to cost a lot. Omenihu, not so much. I do think he ends up staying with the Chiefs. I just think that based on his cost, they're going to be able to bring him back, and they're going to want to bring back some of their free agents, and I think Omenihu could be one of those that gets brought back. But I could easily see him leaving just based off of the Chiefs not being able to pay him. Next guy is Azeez Ojulari from the Giants. I think this is his first year as a free agent because he's like 25 or 24 years old. But when I did a little bit of research, it doesn't seem like the Giants. It seems like there's a good chance he could end up leaving the Giants. With their, with them having guys like Brian Burns, having Kayvon Thibodeaux, they could lose a guy like Ojulari. And a team who is currently losing a lot of their edge rushers right now, that has a lot of money, is the Cincinnati Bengals, who I think could maybe be in the market for an Azeez Ojulari. These are just predictions. I haven't heard anything of him going to the Bengals, but I just like this fit because they have the money. They just let go of Sam Hubbard, who retired, and as I just checked my phone, it says they just gave Trey Hendrickson permission to seek a trade, so they could lose both their starting pass rushers, and now they have the money. So I like the fit of Ojulari to sort of give the Bengals defense, which needs a lot of help, that young's up and coming pass rush help. Next is Chase Young from the Saints, who sort of bounced around from team to team ever since he left Washington. He's been on the Saints and teams like the Saints and the Niners. And I don't think he is going to necessarily cost a ton of money. And a team who desperately could use help at the pass rush sort of position or area that actually went after Chase Young is the Panthers. I think last offseason they targeted Chase Young. They either brought him in for a visit and or gave him a contract, but he ended up going to the Saints. So I like them sort of giving that second chance to bring in a guy that's not going to cost too much money in Chase Young to help out that pass rush group that desperately needs help. Next guy is DeMarcus Lawrence from the Colts. Now, I think there's a chance he ends up retiring, but this is if he does play. I think he goes back to the Cowboys. They just recently restructured Dax and CeeDee Lamb's contracts, and that freed up $58 million, and now they currently have $45 million in cap. So they have a lot of money, and the Cowboys don't tend to make big splashes, it seems like, in free agency. They tend to just like to bring their guys back. And if DeMarcus Lawrence does choose to play another year, with the Cowboys having the new money they just freed up, I have a hard time him leaving the Cowboys. I think he'll just end up retiring a Cowboy, so I think the Cowboys bring him back. Next guy, Dayo Odeyingbo I think I'm saying that right. From the Colts. Another young pass rusher, kind of like Azeez Ojulari. And when it comes to the Colts cap, they do have a lot of money, but they also have a lot of free agents. We talked about their O-line free agents in the last video. Make sure to go check that out. Ryan Kelly and Will Fries. And if they do manage to bring those guys back, that's going to obviously take a big hit in their salary cap when it comes to bringing a guy like Odeyingbo back, because he might ask for about like 15 mil a year, something like that. And a team that has a lot of cap, they don't have a lot of cap. They have a decent amount of cap, at least more than the Colts, especially if the Colts bring back their linemen, that needs help at that pass rush position. That's a contending team as well. It's the Packers. When I look up, what fan bases are interested in certain guys, the Packers really want a top edge rusher in this free agency, it seems like. Or at least certain groups of Packers fans. And to get a young guy like Odeyingbo, who could leave the Colts just based on the Colts not having enough money, the Packers would then have the money to sort of outbid the Colts, and they're a better team than the Colts. I kind of like the fit for him in Green Bay. Next up is Malcolm Kuntz from the Raiders. Now, unlike the Colts, the Raiders have plenty of money. They did just re-sign Max Crosby, but I think the cap space I'm looking at includes that. They're at $78 million in cap. So they obviously have, but they have a lot of free agents too. They have Malcolm Kuntz, they have Robert Spillane, Trayvon Moehrig, Nate Hobbs are some of the free agents they have. So they have got a lot of guys they have to bring back, but they have 78 mil. Malcolm Kuntz is a great player for him. I find it hard for him to go elsewhere, and I do think that there is interest for the Raiders to try and bring him back. So I like the Raiders re-signing him and keep him in Las Vegas. Next guy is Haason Reddick, who after that great season he had with the Eagles, he goes to the Jets, and then there's the whole contract dispute. He barely really plays for the Jets, so he's kind of tanked his value. So I don't think he's gonna get a high contract from anybody. I don't think he's gonna get paid a lot. So I think he's just gonna honestly just sign with a contender on a cheap deal, sort of maybe like a prove it deal, and just a contender that needs help rushing the passer, that has a lot of money, even to give a guy who maybe isn't gonna get a lot, is the Commanders. They have, just like the Raiders, $78 million in cap as of now. He's not gonna get a lot of money, I would assume. So you have the money to spend. You can take in a veteran guy on a cheap deal like Haason Reddick, and he could just give you good production. So I like that fit to the Commanders. Next guy is Khalil Mack. Now there's Khalil Mack and Joey Bosa. Both Chargers pass rushers are free agents because the Chargers yesterday cut Joey Bosa. So obviously they're not going to bring Joey Bosa back. I mean, I guess they could, but I doubt it. I doubt he goes back to them. And I do think, though, that with the money they have $90 million in cap right now. I think they bring Khalil Mack back. I just don't think I think there's a chance maybe he doesn't have the biggest market for him. The Chargers have a ton of money, and I don't think they can afford to lose both Khalil Mack and Joey Bosa. So I like them bringing Khalil Mack back on a cheap veteran deal. Speaking of Joey Bosa, he is next up on this list. And one team I liked, some teams I liked, maybe the Commanders, maybe a team like the Bengals or the Lions or the Packers if they didn't, for me, spend money on Odeyingbo. Now, I don't know if this team that I'm predicting Joey Bosa to sign with has the money to sign him. I don't know how much money necessarily Bosa's going to get because he's aged. He's up there in age. He's had his fair share of injuries. So I could see him signing for a cheaper deal, and if that is the case, that opens up a lot of contenders to be able to sign him. And a contender who could be losing some of their key pieces due to salary cap is the Eagles. If the Eagles lose Josh Sweat, who we'll get to next, I could see them easily in on a cheap guy like maybe Joey Bosa or Khalil Mack, maybe even bringing Hassan Reddick back. I could see them, if they can't get Josh Sweat or they can't trade for a guy like Myles Garrett or I guess Trey Hendrickson, I could see them being in on the Joey Bosa sweepstakes and getting him on a cheaper deal to help them go back to back. Now that does mean that Josh Sweat, who's up next, is probably going to leave in my predictions. They just paid Zach Bond. They also have to worry about Milton Williams. I think Josh Sweat could be a casualty of this free agent class for the Eagles. They're currently sitting at $10 million. Josh Sweat's obviously going to make more than $10 million. And a team that has way more than $10 million, that needs help at that pass rush position, that's trying to sort of take that next leap, who's already shown that they are aggressive this offseason to try and make their team better, is the Chicago Bears. They can get the Sweats together. Montez Sweat and Josh Sweat. I just realized that. Just put that together. I only know, are they related? I feel like that's a dumb question. I think they are. I think they are brothers. So that would be cool, I guess, for them to team up in Chicago. But speaking otherwise, the Bears have a ton of money, despite getting Jonah Jackson and Joe Thuney. They've shown their aggression. They need somebody outside of Montez Sweat to rush the passer, and why not bring in probably the best pass rusher on the free agent market, Josh Sweat. Lastly, he's not a free agent, but there's been a lot of trade, talks as he requested a trade with Myles Garrett. Now, there was the reports that the Eagles would be willing to part ways with all their big free agents and go all in on Myles Garrett. Who knows if them signing Zach Bond, who knows what that means regarding Myles Garrett to the Eagles. But I think a fit that, I don't even know if this is possible. I just think it'd be really cool if it happens. This team they're trying to win a Super Bowl every year. They're trying to contend. They're one of the better teams. They already have one of the better pass rushers in the league, coming off of a great start to his season, but then got hurt for the rest of it, is the Detroit Lions. I don't even know if this is possible, but I feel like, one, the Browns are able to trade Myles Garrett to an NFC team, which I would assume they would hope to be able to do. I don't think they want to keep him in the AFC, so they get him in the NFC. The Lions pair him and Aiden Hutchinson, potentially, arguably two of the better pass rushers, or 100% two of the better pass rushers in football. And I bet there's some people that have them 1 and 2. So to have that duo would just be insane. I don't even know if it's possible. I would really like to see Myles Garrett on the Lions. Moving on to the linebackers, the off-ball inside linebackers. First guy is Lavonte David. He is on the older side. And honestly, I just have a hard time him going to any other team but the Bucs. I can't really see him in a different uniform at this point. He's been so good for so long and so reliable for the Bucs that I just have a hard time him leaving, honestly. And I think based on research, it seems like they want to bring him back, and it seems like there's a good chance that he will get brought back, I think. But I just have a hard time seeing him not play for the Bucs next season. And maybe he could retire, but I think he'll just re-sign with the Bucs. Next guy is Bobby Wagner. Now, I could see him going back to the Commanders, considering how much money they have, and considering he, I think, led them in tackles last season. But if he were to not go back to the Commanders, a team that has just about the same amount of money as the Commanders, that needs help at that linebacker position is the Raiders. Have him reunite with Pete Carroll in Las Vegas. It doesn't seem like Russell Wilson will reunite with the Raiders, but maybe we could see Tyler Lockett also go to the Raiders. But speaking of Bobby Wagner, right here, the Raiders need help at that linebacker position, especially if they lose Robert Spillane. And why not Bobby Wagner reunite with his coach from Seattle, Pete Carroll, in Las Vegas? I think that would just be a cool little thing to see there. Next guy is Kyzir White, a young linebacker for the Cardinals. Cardinals have a lot of money. Kyzir White had a very good season for the Cardinals. I think I like him just going back to the Cardinals. They have enough money to bring him back. I think they just re-sign him. And honestly, I know I had Bobby Wagner go to the Raiders, but you need more than one inside linebacker. I like Spillane also re-signing with the Raiders. They have a ton of money. Wagner's not going to cut a lot into that salary cap. Bring back a guy like Robert Spillane, who's been great for you. He's a captain, as you can see by the picture, so I have a hard time seeing him leave the Raiders, even if they were to get a guy like Bobby Wagner. Next up is Jamien Sherwood from the Jets. He's on the younger side of linebackers. They do have the money to bring him back, so the Jets could re-sign Sherwood. However, my prediction is not going to have him re-sign, and a team that has even more money than the Jets have $37 million, but this team has $52 million, a team who could outbid the Jets for Sherwood, that needs linebacker help, that's also trying to contend, is the Rams. Haven't seen, no correlation. This is just a prediction. I like the fit with him on the Rams. They need help at that position. They have a ton of money, and they can get a young, up-and-coming guy in Jamien Sherwood. Now, on the flip side of young and up-and-coming, we have a more veteran guy in Shaq Thompson. Panthers have already said they're going to part ways with Shaq Thompson and not bring him back. So he is going to be on a new team next year because I don't think he's retiring. And a team that was previously mentioned that lost somebody at the same position, another veteran, was the Commanders. So my pick is for Shaq Thompson to go with the Commanders. We already saw Jeremy Chin go from the Panthers to the Commanders. We already saw Frankie Louvu go from the Panthers to the Commanders. Why not bring another one? Why not bring Shaq Thompson? You replace one veteran linebacker with another. You probably get, I don't know who's going to make more money between him and Bobby Wagner. Probably Bobby Wagner because he played a full season. So you get a little cheaper. You still get that veteran presence in that linebacker room. And you're reuniting with two of his former teammates. Next guy is Ernest Jones, who I believe was on the Titans, I think, when he got traded to the Seahawks at the deadline. And he had a great second half season for the Seahawks. And I think, just like when they traded for Leonard Williams from the Giants, he was a free agent when they traded for Leonard Williams, but they were able to bring him back after he had a good season for him, and it's been a great trade since. I think that stays consistent with Ernest Jones. The Seahawks have $36 million in cap right now. I think they can get the deal done with Ernest Jones, especially cutting guys like Lockett, Metcalf potentially leaving. I don't think they have a ton of top tier free agents as well that they also have to re-sign. So I think they have the ability to keep their guy Ernest Jones, who they traded for last season. So I think he stays. Next is Nick Bolton. Now, we already talked about the Chiefs and their salary cap problems and how it could cause a lot of guys to leave. And I don't even know if it's possible for them to bring Nick Bolton back. But I think if there is one guy that they would try their absolute hardest to bring back, it's Nick Bolton. I think he's top of their list on out of guys like Amenahu and Justin Reed and whatnot. I think Nick Bolton, outside of I guess Trey Smith, is who could still get traded, is at the top of their would be at the top of their list of guys who they would want to bring back, because their defense has just been so good, and if you lose a guy like Nick Bolton, that will hurt your defense so much. Because I don't think they're gonna be able to bring back all of their guys, but if they have to choose one, I think it would be Nick Bolton. I know I also picked Menahu to stay, but I think Nick Bolton stays with the Chiefs. But if he leaves because of salary, I will not be surprised at all. Last guy is Dre Greenlaw, who, despite being a fantastic linebacker for the Niners, despite the Niners having a decent amount of money, although that doesn't include Brock Purdy's future extension, signs are pointing to him and also Talanoa Hufanga, who will be on the next episode of our free agency predictions. Seems like both of Greenlaw and Hufanga are going to leave. So now we have to look at who could bring in a guy like Dre Greenlaw. Teams who could use linebackers that have the money. The Rams we already mentioned, but we had them getting Jamie Sherwood. The Cardinals, I guess, could be an Andre Greenlaw, but I find it hard for Greenlaw to go to an NFC West rival. The Raiders could be in a guy like Dre Greenlaw. Maybe even the Commanders. But a team that I've seen a lot in terms of like wanting linebackers, maybe it's their fans, maybe it's just one fan who wants, some of the top linebackers in this free agency. They have the money. They lost one of their top guys in the same position last year, in last free agency. They have about $37 million in cap, and that's the Denver Broncos. I've seen, Broncos fans might want linebacker help. They lost Josie Jewell last year. I mean, even if you don't need linebackers, Dre Greenlaw is one of the better linebackers in the league. They have the money, and they need help at that position. And it seems like he will leave San Fran. And if he does, I like him. I like his fit with the Broncos. And that will officially conclude our linebacker and edge rusher free agency predictions. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to leave a like. Make sure to comment some of your thoughts and some of your predictions on some of these players. As always, make sure to hit the subscribe button. Helps the channel out a lot more than you think. So make sure to subscribe. Turn the notification bell on so you don't miss more videos when they come out. And I'll see you guys next time. Peace.